See it?
A big one.
Is that the matching set?
Looks like.
Tell me about it.
Wow. It was so.
Whoosh. Hey guys, Caleb Baines with the Process Outdoors, and today we're talking about finding sheds. So my top 3 biggest tips for finding sheds. It's not foolproof, and if you follow these 3 tips, it's not like you're going to guarantee find sheds, but it's sure going to increase your odds because I've been through the low of years and not found any after walking miles and miles, and I've been to the mountaintop and found awesome sheds, it seemed like, after every turn. So follow these 3 tips, and hopefully this year you can bring in some big old antler this year. So tip number 1, and by far the most important, and we're going to be pushing this a lot more this year because it's just awesome, and there's too many memories made in the woods with kids present to not harp on it, and that is you got to bring your kids along. If anything, for the extra set of eyes. Kids add that extra bit of excitement to finding a shed, and let's be honest, trying to find a needle in the haystack, you could use every bit of eye power you could possibly get. Even if they're little 3-year-olds, you'd be amazed what they can find once you get them tuned in to finding sheds. Actually, you know what? Let's cut to the clip where Waylon found a heck of a shed that I literally walked right over. Waylon! Oh my God! Oh my gosh! I literally walked right over that. Waylon was like this, and me, and I hear, I found an antler! Wow. Yeah, I couldn't believe it either. That was definitely not a staged scene, and I've been watching that deer on trail camera in the field, and I knew that he dropped that antler somewhere close, and I literally walked right over it. It was amazing how well they blended into the corn. But tip number 1, take your kids with you. It's an awesome time, and pack them on your shoulder, bring some snacks. If it's a little bit snowy out, bring a sled, drag them around the woods. Not only will it increase your chances of finding sheds, but you're going to make some awesome memories in the woods. So tip number 2 on the list, that is finding the hot spots. So hot spots, as far as I'm concerned, primarily consist of food. So food this time of year is absolutely king. I can't tell you how many trail cam pictures I get surveying a field where there's 10, 15 deer and a ton of turkey in the field. If you have food and you have the right food, or you have the ability to find that food that they're honing in on, you better wait for the right time, which we'll talk about in a second, and really barrel in there and find some of those sheds. So they're this time of year, they're 100% focused on survival and food. And if you can find a field that they're really hammering, then you're guaranteed going to find some good sheds. It really is amazing the difference that a hot spot such as an awesome food source would make. And 3 or 4 years ago, we had a CRP field that went out of contract, and we had the farmer come in and plant the 12 acres, and we actually wrote within the lease for him to leave 2 acres standing of either corn or beans, and that is when it literally flipped the switch for me on one of our 60-acre parcels. We went from finding 1 dink shed to sheds like this, upwards of 15 sheds a year on 60-acre parcel, just because we had that awesome standing food source. And you can plant for it too. Brassicas do great this time of year as well, but you really can't beat corn and beans. Those grains provide the carbohydrates that the bucks need this time of year to stay alive and keep that fat content up. Other hot spots that definitely need to be keyed on is number 1, beds. Well, number 2 next to food, but beds, because the deer spend majority of their day in their bed, and waiting to go to food is really their life this time of year. So finding where they bed up on ridge tops, on south-facing slopes is another huge opportunity. And we also find a lot of sheds around green trees such as cedars or other conifers that they like to bed under. Kind of has that thermal effect. Finding where they bed and where they eat are the 2 biggest factors, in my opinion, to finding big sheds, finding sheds in general this year, or any year for that matter. but also, as it relates to that, finding the trails in between there. And not just the trail itself, we often find ourselves walking a lot of the trails, and that's where we find those sheds, but specific things along the trail, such as a fence crossing that they have to cross. It's going to jar their head when they jump over it. Oftentimes, you'll find sheds around fence crossings, or this past year, we found a lot of sheds around creeks where they had to jump across the creek, which was just enough to jar that antler off their head. So finding some of these areas where they bed, the trails to and from food, where they're eating, and then areas where they're going to have to jump or their antlers get jarred and drop off their heads are, in my opinion, absolute hot spots. And with kids around, if you do have them shed hunting with you, that's a great technique, is to buzz through, hit the hot spots, and really take your time, walk slowly in those areas, and key in on the high percentage, high potential areas, and it'll definitely make your time in the shed woods more productive. And that being said, that's kind of our third and final tip, and that is walk slow and walk as far as your kid or your boots will possibly take you. Again, I can't tell you how many sheds I've probably walked past and never found, or walked past and someone walking behind me found them. It is amazing how they can hide so well in corn or brush. Once that snow melts, sometimes it's almost like they disappear. So take your time, walk slow, and we'll give you a quick fourth bonus tip, and that is make sure you pick the right time to get out there. It's pretty easy to get fired up to find sheds right now, seeing people posting them on social media, finding sheds, but probably the most detrimental thing you could do right now, it is, what is it, January 18th today, is if you go out to a parcel and you walk the whole thing, look for sheds, put your pressure on that parcel, and bump every deer off the parcel. They're going to possibly relocate, find your neighbor's food. They could possibly drop their sheds on the neighbors. Let them get comfortable with your food source, hunker down for the winter, and do their routine time over time until it's time for their antlers to drop. And what time is that? Typically in the Midwest for us, that time is at the end of February or the early March. At that time, their testosterone level, the majority of the bucks' testosterone level hits the point where it needs to, and that is when the pedicle will detach from the head. It takes a certain amount of testosterone loss for that pedicle to deteriorate and the antlers to drop. That's what causes antlers to drop. And typically the end of February, early March is that time frame. So get out there this year. Use these tips, these 4 tips. Take your kids out with you. Find the hot spots, as we described. Walk slow, and don't be too anxious to get out there and spook everything off your parcel and give those sheds to your neighbor, because these things are needles in a haystack and white gold. And I can't tell you how much fun the kids and I and my wife have searching for these antlers every single year. So take these into account, and hopefully you'll have a better shed season than last and more awesome ones to come. Speaking of, if you guys are liking some of the content that we've been putting out, feel free to hit the subscribe button as well as click the notification bell. We're going to be coming out with some other educational videos, and really that's going to be the format of a lot of our stuff this year, is more of an interview with some of our in-field experiences in it, trying to get you guys in the right mindset and trying to bestow some of this knowledge that we've collected over the past years of hunting into your toolbox so that you can be the best hunter as possible. And the biggest thing that we're going to be talking about this year is ways to get your kids in the outdoors and how to be successful with them. And I promise finding these guys is the first step to success and getting them pumped up. So until next time, thanks for watching, and get your kids in the outdoors.